Hello, Pioneers. Today is Wednesday, January 14th. My name is Maddie Patton.
And I'm Sujitha Kadurasan. Welcome back to the press. After the 1970s revolution, Iran's new leadership quickly consolidated power, ushering in an era marked by tighter state control, widespread censorship, and harsh crackdowns on political opposition, with recent protests ramping back up in the region. Kylie has more details. Kylie?
Thanks, Sujitha. In the 1970s, mounting frustration with Iran's Western-backed Shah, driven by political repression, economic inequality, and rapid modernization sparked growing opposition across the country. Tensions boiled over in 1978 as mass protests erupted, fueled by anger over government crackdowns, and rallied around exiled cleric Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. By late that year, nationwide strikes and demonstrations had paralyzed Iran, stripping the Shah of political and military support. In January 1979, the Shah fled into exile, and weeks later, Khomeini returned to Tehran to massive crowds. By February, the monarchy had collapsed, clearing the way for the establishment of Iran's Islamic Republic. Politically, Iran's new leadership tightened its grip on power by restricting free speech, enforcing heavy censorship, and cracking down aggressively on opposition, often using imprisonment, violence, or executions to silence dissent. So, how is this relevant to today? Protests began on December 28, 2025, sparked by deepening economic hardship, specifically rising inflation, a collapsing currency, and increased food prices, which pushed the country's citizens into the streets in Tehran and other cities. What started as mostly economic demonstrations soon expanded into nationwide anti-government protests across all 31 provinces, with crowds chanting anti-regime slogans and calling for broader political change. The government responded with a near total internet and communications blackout beginning in early January 2026, sharply limiting outside reporting and coordination among protesters. Security forces have used live ammunition and heavy force against protesters, and human rights monitors report hundreds to thousands of deaths and tens of thousands of arrests, making this one of the most violent unrests inside Iran. Iranian officials have labeled demonstrators as, quote, rioters or foreign-backed actors and have promised harsh legal action against them, while international responses, including threats of action from the United States, continue to shape the broader context.
Thanks, Kylie. President Donald Trump's advisors are once again discussing options for acquiring Greenland. The administration argues Greenland is strategically important to U.S. national security, citing increased Arctic activity from Russia and China, as well as access to rare earth minerals and military positioning. A national poll states roughly 4 in 5 Americans are against acquiring Greenland by any means, and that number drops to 3% when discussing military force.
Denmark and Greenland's leaders have rejected the idea, stressing that the territory is not for sale. Several European officials have cautioned that a military move against Greenland could destabilize long-standing alliances and undermine collective defense agreements.
Captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who has since then been replaced by incumbent Delcy Rodriguez, appeared in the U.S. federal court on charges including drug trafficking and narco-terrorism, stemming from a 2020 U.S. indictment. This has affected many different islands, specifically in the Caribbean. Here's a look with what it's like being stuck in the Caribbean.
Hi Pioneers, I'm Maddie Patton and I am currently stuck in the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is due to the invasion of Venezuela that happened on Saturday, January 3rd. So what happened was the U.S. military went to the capital of Venezuela and took the current president and first lady back to the United States in New York. This has really affected a lot of the islands, especially the airspace. The entire Caribbean airspace was shut down from the 3rd to 1 a.m. on the 4th. This has affected everybody, and specifically me, because all of the flights got canceled and you can't book a flight back with ease. The earliest available flight, if you did not pre-book, if your flight got canceled on the 3rd or the 4th, is January 9th, which is a Friday. So this has really affected a lot of people's lives around here. People didn't bring their computers, they can't work. and really it's kind of chaotic. You have to find a new place to stay, you have to book a new flight, and it's really just kind of inconveniencing everybody. So now I'm going to take a look into the situation from the perspective of somebody that is stuck. On top of trying to find a new place to stay, many people, especially travelers from the United States, have been struggling with getting off of the island. There are a bunch of lines to get out of the ferry, to get out of any city, and especially at the airports. Many airlines have been affected by this because they are not able to get as many airlines off of the ground due to the shortage and the backed up flights that need to take off. That's all for me. Now back to the desk.
I'm glad to be back. Turning to the economy, the Department of Justice has opened a federal investigation onto Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, issuing warrants related to the renovation of the Washington headquarters.
Powell has denied any wrongdoing and warned that the investigation could threaten the independence of the Federal Reserve, a cornerstone of U.S. economic policy.
Financial markets reacted quickly. Stocks dipped earlier this week while investors moved towards safer assets, like gold, amid uncertainty.
In diplomatic news, U.S. officials confirmed that communication channels with Iran remain open, even as tensions persist in the Middle East.
The White House says dialogue is aimed at reducing the risk of escalation, though officials caution that there is no formal agreements that are currently in place. That's all for today, Pioneers. Keep up with current events by tuning in next Wednesday for more national news. For the press, I'm Maddie Patton.
And I'm Sujita Kadurasan. Have a great rest of your week.